You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs almost here, but not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel, because right now new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. Chris and I dropping in with a special edition, catching you on the fly as we wanted to get set for Red Raider hoops coming up. Chris on the road from Salt Lake City, Utah is where we'll see Tech in action. And this begins the first of two from Utah as you'll hook up with BYU also before you head back to Lubbock. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, are we breaking the Utah seal here? Have we had the Utes as an opponent so far in the Big 12?
That is accurate. You're going to get them. You're going to get them in basketball tonight, and then you're going to get them in football. You'll be right back here in football this coming fall. We don't know when yet. Is that will be something else that we'll break down whenever the Big 12 releases the football schedule. But I do believe there's a trip to Salt Lake City in your future. We have been here before. I have been here before because stayed at the same hotel here in downtown Salt Lake that I did whenever you played BYU, a season ago, when your trip up here. And it's about a 45-minute trip from Salt Lake to Provo. But as far as Utah goes, I know more about their football program. Obviously, that they went through their issues this year, but like basketball, man, you and I were joking. It's like Keith Van Horn and Michael Doliak, Andre Miller, Rick Majerus.
Our reference is a little dated, I got to be honest.
I know. And they, I was actually, it's funny because I was at the Final Four. I watched Tubby Smith win his lone championship, national championship. Ashley Judd was like 20 rows in front of me. But when Kentucky beat Utah, and it was at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, and I'm in Rick Majerus with that sweater and all the stuff, and I just remember that version of the Utes, and obviously it was weird because Tubby won it for Kentucky, and then lo and behold, it's like I'd be working with him, several years later as the head coach at Texas Tech. But Utah is one of the programs I know the least about, least walking around knowledge, I should say, past that kind of era whenever they were pretty good. And they had those NBA guys on their team, and Rick Majerus was one of the top coaches in the sport and things like that. They're coached by Craig Smith. This is year 4 for him. He came, which this was probably fairly interesting news in the state, but he came over from Utah State. Utah State is famous for, they're the Aggies. That's where obviously Matt Wells was and all that. But Utah State basketball is crazy. They've always been pretty good. And they started I don't know if they started it, but I think they perfected. But I believe we will win chance. I don't know if you've ever seen those. There's on YouTube. It's phenomenal. It's like the crowds at the Utah State games are crazy. But they win 25, 30 games. It seems like fairly regularly. Anyway, he left Utah State in 2021, I guess, and took the Utah job. And I'd be willing to bet you that they probably would have hoped that it would have been a bit better than it's been. He's basically a few games over 500, I think, in his time there. And they were picked 16th by the Big 12 coaches. And I'm not great at math, but I do know there are 16 teams in the Big 12. And so, so I don't know what you're getting into here tonight. I really don't. They've got, on the mailbag episode we talked about program guys and guys that have really, they've got one of those in a kid named Gabe Madsen, who is their leading scorer. I think this is his 3rd or 4th year. He's gotten better every year. He's like 6'6", 200. I think he set a Utah program record for like 105 made threes last year, which is crazy. And remember the topic, Callan, we were talking about, are you are you big enough, or is it are you been undersized? Is it a concern? Well, let me just tell you what Craig Smith kind of subscribes to as far as like his style or scheme. I mean, basically they go tall ball. That's what he calls it. They try to utilize size and length and athleticism to their advantage. They're pretty big across the board. Now, maybe not as quick, or maybe they don't knock down shots, or maybe they don't do this or that. But yeah, you'll deal with another lengthy, deep roster tonight, and they want to play 11 guys. So we'll see what we get here.
I don't really know. I mean, it must just be a lot of credit maybe to Rick Majerus, which was 20 years ago.
I know it's been a
Utah
while.
was a force at one point in time, consistently successful, always in the NCAA tournament. I don't think they've been to the tournament since 16, something like that.
Been a minute.
And only a few appearances, since his departure. But I don't know if maybe the Pac-12 impacted them negatively from a basketball. I don't know, but I don't know also why they couldn't be, one of the basketball programs with the pulse in this conference. I'm kind of wondering if maybe the Big 12 as a conference could give their program a boost, or maybe kind of re-inject it with some life.
Well, I'll tell you, they're going to get that bump because they're going to be one of those that, okay, we better get really serious about things with our budget. And keep in mind, Craig Smith, I don't know if this was forced, if this was his idea, but he basically kind of cleaned house with his staff prior to this season or after last season. So he's dealing with 3 new assistants, new general manager, new term in the modern era of college athletics, new general manager, new assistant coaches. I think 8 or 9 new pieces on the roster. So chemistry is part of their deal. But if you kind of half step in this league, you're going to get chewed up. But what Craig Smith may be saying is like, hey man, those boys in Provo just spent $5 million on a recruit.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we want to get serious about it, what this is, so that the combination of all that, yeah, it may cause some, but again, everybody's feeling it. Everybody feels the need to try to ante up or get serious about this thing. But yeah, this is so I don't know. It's not going to surprise me if you don't get it done tonight, because it's hard to win on the road, period. If you do, I think that it's not like something like, I think you kind of have gotten back, maybe dropping one at home, and you go get it back, and then you can try to get ahead of the curve, because the BYU game will be very difficult, and there'll be like 17,000 people in the Marriott Center. Which did you know this? Marriott's the Mormon owned thing. Did you know it's called Marriott? Have you ever heard that?
I did not.
Yeah, I always called it Marriott, right? Have you? Yeah, exactly. That's what Marriott. That's too much y'all in us. It's the Marriott. But this is Marriott, or see, I screwed it up again. It's the Marriott Central of everything out here. We are going from one Marriott to another, in Salt Lake to Provo. The BYU Arena is the Marriott Center. The library, I think, on Utah's campus is the Marriott Library. There's a lot of influence out here, but yeah, this is Marriott Central headquarters. But yeah, they used to have a sponsorship with Learfield, and there was people across the network calling it Marriott, which I'm like, I didn't know. Somebody's got to tell me. And I'm thinking, like, your brand to me was Marriott, and I'm like, you should have just left it, because now people are going to go out of your way to try to pronounce it, and they're like, what's this Marriott place? Like, what are they talking about there? But whatever. That's just a side note. Sorry. Those are
bonus episode, bonus advice for the scoops at Marriott.
Yeah, that's right.
We want to call it Marriott. I'm kind of curious from your perspective, what you feel like maybe the Red Raiders have got to get done to have a chance to win the final few minutes, or be in a position when winning time comes. And maybe you've touched on it already, just talking about all the length that's going to be involved. First, today's episode brought to you by Rocket Money. And if you're lost in the subscription whirlwind, listen up. If you're like me, you've had a few subscriptions you didn't even realize you were still paying on. And that's where Rocket Money comes in, making it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and even helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit in 2025. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, the subscription tracker is a must-have. Cancel services you're not using anymore and save a ton. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Just go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon.
Well, what's interesting is that Coach Smith has recently said, because they lost 3 games in the non-conference. They lost to Iowa, to St. Mary's, and to Mississippi State, and then they went to I think they lost to Baylor in their opener and got that one was fairly lopsided, which that's not and what's crazy is there's 2 former Baylor players on Utah's roster, Merrill Little and Caleb Lohner, which I think is interesting. So there's kind of a side note there. But Coach Smith has basically said our defense is letting us down. We can't get stops when we really need them in the last 10 minutes of a game. And I'm thinking, like, well, that sounds familiar. So both will want to have the sense of urgency tonight, and both will want to have fast starts, but it's really comes down to who grinds it out when the game's on the line in the last, 6 to 10 minutes. Who can get those stops? Who can get to the free throw line? Who can take over the game and whatnot? So it's very similar. Honestly, I think both sets of coaches and teams kind of have similar problems right now in that you just can't get stops when you need them down the stretch. And you've been – because they lost a game to St. Mary's, I think, at home, which is ironically a team that Texas Tech did scrimmage. St. Mary's was up 17 points, and again, non-conference game, but Utah comes all the way back, cuts it to 4, and then ends up losing by 10 because they just can't. And I'm like, well, again, sounds very familiar. So we'll kind of see what it looks like tonight. No idea on arena, no idea on crowd. I have no concept for what Salt Lake City on a Saturday night is going to feel like with a team with not many expectations. No clue.
And I don't know as far as to this game is concerned. Who knows? But the future of that program, you got a passionate fan base. You've got some history as a program. I wonder if we may see them in a different spot, maybe in some years to come. Of course, they've been incredibly annoying in general, so I wouldn't be mad at seeing them remain in spot number 16 as far as the preseason polls go, and then maybe the reality. But just hoping today for the Red Raiders get a win. Let's get on the right side of things in the Big 12 Conference, and doing so on the road would be even better. Before I let you go, Chris, I wanted to ask you about this because there was a Matador Mobster asking about this, and you even made a mention of Christian Anderson's name on the Matador Mob mailbag episode this week. But the question and the conversation has kind of been around the point guard position and whether there could be some change in minutes doled out there between Hawkins and Anderson. You talked about maybe some additional minutes for Anderson on the mailbag episode, but I really wasn't even sure that you meant specifically as a point guard. I kind of thought maybe the door was open elsewhere on the floor as well. But what do you make of the PG situation so far? And how do you see maybe Anderson factoring in possibly with some more minutes there or otherwise as we get rolling through the Big 12 schedule?
Yeah, so, I mean, Christian Anderson's minutes are going to continue to increase. I don't know at what expense. I mean, this is the second time I guess I've seen Christian in the game at the tail end when it's on the line and Elijah Hawkins not. Look, Hawkins is a good college player. But like Anderson, mind you, he's flawed, and there's a lot of these guys that have some flaws to them. I mean, just like I do, right? I know, Cowan, you're fortunate enough not to have any of those. I'm jealous, envious.
So far in 2025,
that's right.
Run.
You are rolling, throwing the perfect game. Elijah is scrappy. I think that in transition, he's really good. I think when the game slows down, which it will more of in the Big 12, I think he kind of struggles. If he was an elite 3-point shooter, I think it would help a lot. But he's a okay or pretty good 3-point shooter. I think that I worry about his ability to stand up and be able to guard some of what you're having to deal with here. He can be feisty and all those things, but Christian is a bit, I don't know, he's got a bit more size to him, but he's still slight and he's young. The thing I look at Anderson, because I looked it up just to make sure, because I wanted to be right here, but the 28-8 is Christian Anderson's assist to turnovers, and that's pretty stout. Because what you worry about with young players is their IQ or their ability for the moment to be too big or not taking care of the ball, and then you put your team in a bind. And you kind of have to live with that at some level with young guards. But Christian has not had this problem to this point. There may come a time where he looks a bit overwhelmed or whatever, but he's just his maturity is so far advanced. I just wish he was the 23-year-old version from his body type and had been in the weight room and had eaten the meals that they were serving him and all those things. I wish that was a little bit more advanced, but so it's not going to surprise me, but his minutes are going to continue to increase. And Grant keeps putting him in at the end of the games, which should tell you all you need to know. And he hasn't done anything right now to go, okay, that's a bit too much for the young fella. No, he's handled it great. I mean, watching him maneuver his way around the pick and roll and everything and throw up those lobs to Federico, but just kind of playing the defense how you want it to be played and then figuring it out. That's why everybody runs the pick and roll. It seems so simple, yet it's very difficult to guard. And one step, one look, and that tells the offensive player, okay, it's a shoot, it's a pass, it's a hold on for a second. I mean, all that's got to happen. But he played it perfectly many times in that game, and you'll see him get more and more chances.
Yeah, and it's a thing of beauty when it's played that way.
Yep.
Never goes out of style. All right, Chris, enjoy the ball game. We'll check in with you on the other side of this one as you then make your way to BYU for a matchup there before you're back in the 806. Some big challenges coming up for Tech, but some big opportunities as well. So hopefully they can take advantage of one first with Utah. Appreciate the time as always, man.
Shout out to Marriott, whatever. Shout out to you, Cowan. Hopefully, maybe I'll see some Tech people here in Salt Lake or Provo or something. I don't know, man. Everybody's just smiling at me and being real, handing me ice cream and donuts and all. It's just it's a different deal in this state. They're all very friendly and the scenery is awesome. But guns up. Let's see what we can get done tonight.
That's right. All right. Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. As always, thanks for being out there. For Chris, I'm Casey, and we hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.